The D30-120 fan is a modular fan. What that means is one cable will connect up to 4 fans. Putting these fans together is fairly straightforward, albeit it's a little more complex than, say, what Lee & Corsair and Thermaltake chose to do. Now, on one of the sides, you'll have some grooves here, and on the other side of the fan, there's going to be a couple of little ridges that fit in those grooves. And basically, there's no magnets or anything that hold it together, but it's just kind of a way to orient the fans together. If you look on the one side, you'll find some electrical connections along the top edge of those fans. Now, the control cable, and there's a couple little bridges, which we'll talk about here. There's pins on this, and that's kind of how it's going to get the signal across all of these. Now, when you get these out of the box, they are marked which corner is going to use the fan. Now, I've noticed that you can't put this on the opposite corner, even though there's kind of the same electrical connector there. But it's not super clear as to which corner, after you remove these stickers, as to which it's going to go on. But basically, you're going to take your first fan and then just kind of line these pins up. What I do is align this bottom edge up first. And you'll kind of see how it fits in there. And then you're just going to kind of curl it over the edge, and it just clicks into place, basically pushing those pins down on the electrical connection. But then go ahead and get it lined up, and then it includes 2 of these bridge pieces. Now, so the bridges that are going to go along the top are going to have some pins in them, and they're the ones you want to use right next to these electrical connectors. Basically, it's taking the signal, from this corner cable here and just bridging it along here. But basically, take these bridge pieces, and again, they just kind of fit in there and they just clip down. And you'll get a pretty positive click. It's fairly easy to do. Just kind of center it over it, click it into place. Now, once you get those 2 in, it's still not extremely secure. So what you want to do is flip it over at that point. Just kind of sandwich it together, flip it over. There's a couple of more bridge pieces here that go on the opposite side, but there's no electrical connectors on this side, so these are just blanks. But it's the same exact thing. Just put those over the 2 fans. Now I've got the bridge pieces on the opposite side. Now at this point it is fairly sturdy because you've got the 4 bridge pieces on both sides. Now there are corner pieces for the remaining 3 corners. They don't serve any function really other than just aesthetics, but so to put those on, it's the same as the cable piece here. There's just no cable. Just kind of want to line that in there, clip it into place, and it just covers up that corner there. These pieces should fit flush around the corner. They shouldn't be protruding at all. It should be nice and smooth. And then you've got a pretty solid setup here ready to install that. Something else about this fan that you should be aware of is you can get it in 2 different versions. You can get it in a standard or a reversed fan. This fan does not include the blades in the box, and as far as I can tell, it's not changeable anyways. You can't pop this fan out and put a reverse blade in. Now what that means, in most implementations, you're going to stick this fan in the front, for example, and you want it to be an intake fan. So it's going to take air from outside, it's going to pull it through and push it out the back into your case. In a lot of cases, you don't want to be staring at the rear of the fan, but maybe you want it to be an intake fan, but you have to set it down on the bottom and you're just looking at the rear and it looks stupid. That's the use case for a reverse blade fan, is you can buy the reversed version of it, stick it like this, and it will take air from the rear and push it out through the front. So talking about the specs of this fan real quick, it's got a pretty impressive RPM range. It goes from a really low 250 RPM up to 2000 RPM. So the CFM is different for both the standard and the reverse blade. The standard blade is 63.3 CFM and the reverse blade is 61.5 CFM. So not a big difference, but in either case, it should do a pretty good job of cooling your case down. So as far as pressure goes, it's 3.01 millimeters H2O for the regular blade, 2.72 millimeters H2O for the reverse blade. So these are suitable behind a radiator. They should do a good job there, or as case fans. Now the dBA rating for this is 30.2 for the standard blade and 31.8 for the reverse blade. Now we'll say at the lowest RPM range at 250, I can't even hear them. They are moving a little bit of air, not a lot, but it is moving some air, but it's very quiet. I couldn't hear it at all. At the top end of that, where I got it closer to the 2000 RPM, definitely can hear it. It's not a silent fan. It wasn't distracting to me at all. I would run it like that as I needed. So the typical power rating is being shown as 0.2 amps for both reverse and standard blades. So the other specification you should be aware of is this fan is a thick fan. It's 30 millimeters thick. A normal standard 120 millimeter fan is 25 millimeters thick. So that's not a big deal overall, and I think it does benefit this fan. It gives it some better specs, better CFM, better airflow, better pressure, because you can use some bigger blades in there. 5 millimeters thicker is approximately 0.20 of an inch, so a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. So anyways, just keep that in mind when you're ordering this fans. So as far as fan control, the cable does use a standard 4-pin PWM connection, which is good. It allows you to use a motherboard fan header. You could use a fan hub or any control like that, but it is standard, which is a good thing. Now, as far as RGB control goes, it does use a JST style connector, but it does include a cable that you can connect to that, which gives you the standard 3-pin ARGB connection. It means you can plug this into your 5-volt ARGB header on your motherboard, any of the controllers that use the 3-pin, or as we've looked at a lot on this channel, you could adapt this to the Corsair controller. The RGB cable also has a little daisy chain connector on it, allowing you to attach additional fans if needed. Each fan has 30 LEDs. It does have rubberized anti-vibration pads for where all the screws go, but you could mount these up against a radiator at this point or use them as airflow fans. Now the screws are included to mount them directly to your case, or it does use the long screws if you need those to get them mounted. So another pretty cool feature about this fan is it does include some cover caps for the screw holes. So the pieces don't screw in or anything, they've just got these little pins on here. And basically in the rubber anti-vibration pad, there's some holes molded into the plastic. They basically just press on and it just kind of grips in there. It's just kind of a friction compressed fit, but they sit on there nice and tight. You can go ahead and cover up all of these screw holes. If you have to break this kit apart, you do get enough cover pieces, including the corners and the fan cover pieces, to do that extra fan. That's what these extras are for, is if you're going to break this apart. But once you get that installed, it actually looks pretty good. Now you can put them on the front as well. The front pads are molded with the same holes, so it just kind of will depend on what your installation is. But overall, that just gives it a really clean look. Now, as far as the rear of this goes, all the cables are well hidden by the struts that are on here. It's one of the better looking fans from the rear. The only thing I wish manufacturers would do a little bit differently is with the sticker here. Now, maybe there's some legal requirements why they've got to put some of the electrical certifications on here. But I wish they would start maybe trying to make this replaceable. In the past, I've cut out vinyl and done some things to cover up these things, but as far as that goes, these look pretty good. So there is no controller included with this kit. Again, as I mentioned before, it's just a standard 4-pin PWM connection. So connect this up to your fan controller of choice or your motherboard. The RGB connection, again, there's no controller with this, but Phanteks does make their own RGB controller if you're interested in checking it out. It's kind of a cheap controller, doesn't do a whole lot, but it is available out there if you want to use it. I'll put links to all of these in the description below. It does come with just a basic little controller. It's got 3 ports on it, so if you're using, say, 3 banks of these fans, you could use this kind of more theoretically as a hub. But it does have some of its own RGB lighting elements built in. They're not bad. It's just kind of basic and simple. So what are included are 3 little jumper cables here. Now the one end is going to plug into the controller, and the other end has got the JST connection on it, which is going to take this, instead of going to 3-pin ARGB, it's going to convert it into the connector that goes into this controller. Now this is a SATA powered controller, so that's kind of nice. Comes with a little cable to do that. As far as actual RGB controls, you get 2 options with this. It does come with a little included remote, and it just connects into the one side, and then it's got 3 buttons for mode, color, and speed. This is what you would use if you want to use the internal functions of this RGB controller. Again, they're basic, there's not a whole lot there, but it's very usable, it looks all right. But you can use that. But the other cable it comes with is an extension cable. You plug that in. And the other end of this is a 3-pin ARGB connector. So you could plug it into your controller. And then the other end of this could go into your motherboard or a Corsair controller or any other RGB controller. And then this acts really more as a hub. But that's about everything you need to know to get this installed. The RGB elements on it look really cool. It's just this outer halo light that's here. And the fan blade is kind of more of an opaque white color. So the light kind of reflects off of it, instead of being more transparent like a lot of them are. So that kind of gives a unique, pretty cool look. Overall, I was pretty pleased with the RGB lights from this. I was using Asus to control it, and I've tried the internal controller. Everything was pretty decent on it. There's definitely enough here to get started and have it look pretty sharp. The build quality of this fan's really, really good. Like I said, it's a very robust fan. And even though it's only 5 millimeters thicker, you can definitely kind of tell that when you first get it out. It's kind of like, it's a cool looking, thick, beefy fan. The single cable here, even though it kind of pigtails into 2 at the end here, this is the only cable that you have to find a way back to somewhere, which greatly simplifies your cable management. It's a Really thin cable coming here off the end, so unlike the Corsair IQ Link system, you don't have any of these crazy connections that you got to contend with. This should be fairly easy to route in your case. So I like that. I like that it's using standard connections. Just gives you a wide range of standard controls to control it. I think I paid about 90 bucks for this kit. Check the link below for the latest prices from Amazon. Shop around for them. But for 90 bucks, it's not a cheap fan. It's about $30 per fan because there's no included controller or anything like that. So it puts it right up there, with some of the more expensive fans in Lee & Lee. I can't really say it's any better than Lee & Lee or anything like that. It'll kind of just depend on what it is you want out of it. But overall, I've been fairly impressed with the Phanteks D30-120 fans. They're good looking in my opinion. The functionality is there. It's got the performance in the right areas. Putting them together, not a big deal. Like I said, it's a little bit more complex than the others, but it's nothing overly complex. So anyways, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about these fans, please let me know. Again, the links will be in the description below. Go check those out. They do benefit the channel if you choose to use them. But that is going to do it for today. Thanks for watching.